All right. Let's see, let's go down here. All right. So, network architecture and design. In your layer 1 cabling issues, let me just get this there. Electromagnetic interference is caused by electrical signals like lightning or fluorescent lights. One wire can link into another wire, that's crosstalk. Attenuation is how the signal weakens as it goes down the cable because there's some resistance in the cable. And if it's wireless, it just smears out into a bigger space, which makes the cable weaker. So twisted pairs are intended to minimize crosstalk because each pair has a ground and a live wire, and they're twisted a different number of twists per inch. So hopefully the crosstalk will cancel out, provide some protection, but not much protection. And so there's various categories. Now pretty much everybody's up to Cat 6, so you can run gigabit Ethernet on it. Shielded twisted pair just has a layer of shielding like tinfoil on the outside of it to protect it from external electromagnetic interference. That makes the cable more rigid and expensive. And coaxial cable is really high speed. It's a waveguide. You have one conductor in the middle and a braided sheath outside it, so that protects it from outside interference. And as long as you don't bend this too much, it forms a perfect waveguide for a range of frequencies that go down here, and it's very nice. Well, not a perfect waveguide, but a very good waveguide that can carry a lot of transmission. Fiber optics is effectively perfect. It can send a signal up to 50 miles. There's some attenuation, but it's very small, and that's why I use it for things like undersea cables that go thousands of miles. Multimode fiber has a wide core, 50 nanometers or 62.5 nanometers, so it is much cheaper to use because you can use LEDs as light sources, but the light is not all parallel. It's bouncing at various angles, so it tends to smear out, so the bandwidth is lower, and you can only go a shorter distance. Single mode fiber has a narrow core of 6 or 8 nanometers, so you can only have one path to go right down the center, and nothing crooked, and therefore the signal does not smear out very much, and it goes much further, but you have to power it with lasers, which are more expensive at both ends. Wavelength division multiplexing is used to send multiple signals over different colors of light. As long as the light doesn't get extremely bright, light does not interfere with other light in glass. So you can run many beams of light through the same glass at the same time, and they will not interfere with each other. So you can get up to a lot of data. I think the theoretical maximum is 100 terabits per second down one strand of fiber optics, if it's single mode. So Ethernet is the most common technology used on a local area network. You have one cable per device. That's a physical star topology with twisted pair cables, and it's baseband, which means every cable is used completely by one device. Now, if two nodes transmit simultaneously, frames can collide and destroy each other. And that was more popular back in the days when people used hubs instead of switches, but it still happens a lot on wireless networks where you cannot prevent the signals from interfering with each other because there's no physical constraint. All the devices in a wireless network send the data in all directions, so all the devices in a room will in fact collide into each other and mess up each other's signals. On Ethernet networks, you use CSMA-CD, carrier sense multiple access collision detection. It watches the voltage of a signal, and the voltage will only stay within a certain range for a single transmission, but if two transmissions collide, the voltage will add up to a forbidden large signal as the two positive voltages add together, so you can detect when there's a collision. When that happens, it tells all the stations to stop and have a random delay and retransmit. So it senses multiple access, does collision detection and retransmission. All right, that's a collision. It sends a jam signal to tell all the nodes to stop transmitting and to wait a random amount of time before retransmitting. All right. However, in wireless networks, you can't do that because the signal in a wireless network falls off with distance. So you do not know what voltage would indicate two signals adding together. So you can't detect it, so what you must do is avoid collisions. So what you have to do is first you send a signal saying, I would like to transmit, and then you wait until everybody else shuts up, and then you talk, and then you say, okay, now you can talk. So each of the devices take turns using the wireless network, and this means the actual good throughput on a wireless network is typically about half of the rated speed. Half of the entire bandwidth is consumed with arguing about who's going to talk next. So it's significantly inefficient, and there's a lot of collisions and problems, or there's a lot of lost frames and damaged frames, but it's so convenient people put up with all that. ArcNet and Token Ring were old wired transmissions, legacy LAN technologies that ran at ridiculously slow speeds by modern standards, up to 16 megs. And FIDI used two layers of fiber optics going in different directions so that if there was a cut, you could still use it. They could go the other way around it. So this was considered pretty high tech a couple decades ago. Nobody much would be using it anymore unless they have an installation from decades ago. All right, so the physical network topology, a bus is where you just had a bus like this. This was the original Ethernet, and the problem is if a cable breaks, a whole region just loses networking. Now, a tree or hierarchical is what really happens on the internet, but this is one you could do it this way, where you branch this way. Again, that's not used in a modern network, but now ring was used by Token Ring, and this was popular for a while, but FIDI used both the physical and logical ring. And the good thing about it is even if you break a cable, you can send data the other way if you have a bidirectional ring. But Ethernet uses a star, and this is the one that is by far the most common now. Every device has its own cable to get to a central device, which is a switch. And so if a cable breaks, it only affects one device. The rest can still transmit. Token Ring used a physical star, but a logical ring. So it would pass around a token, giving each device a chance to talk. And so there was never a collision or any question of who was transmitting. There was no case where two devices would transmit at once. It was organized. The problem is the network devices in the center and the NICs were far more expensive than Ethernet. So Ethernet got faster and cheaper and pushed Token Ring out of the market. A mesh. This is more what you have on the internet. You can have a fully connected mesh where every device has a cable going to every other device, or a partially connected mesh where there are some multiple redundancies of the route. And this is what the internet is. There are multiple routes to get from one place to another. So if one cable breaks, it doesn't usually affect anybody very much. The traffic just routes around it. You have to break a lot of cables or a lot of devices before you have an outage. All right. So let's take a look at 4E. And that will be here. All right. All right, if you put cables near fluorescent lights, what happens? electromagnetic interference. EMPs are what you get from a nuclear bomb. The external electrical signals coming in, that's EMI. Oh. All right, maybe I'm, all right, I can't go back. That's funny, some people got it right. Wonder if I got it wrong. Anyway, on we go. All right, what's the most common type of Ethernet cable? Yeah, unshielded trusted pair, the cheapest and the most common. All right. Which land used 2 fiber rings? Yeah, Fiddy did. All right. And which physical topology does Ethernet use? It's a star. One central device, and what everybody connects to that central device, which is a switch. All right. Good. All right, let me take a look here. I think we should do one more. Let's see. I can tell from this. Yeah, we should do one more. All right. All right, so wide area network technologies and protocols. You have T1 lines that give you 24 dial-up lines, 1.5 megabit total. T3 gives you 45 megabit total, and that's a point-to-point connection between your location and the phone company, typically. Europe has their own version of it that's pretty similar. And SONET is what you do if you need really a lot of bandwidth. It goes through fiber optics and has many levels with a very, very high bandwidth and, of course, very expensive. Frame relay is a way to break a connection into chunks and have multiple logical connections over a single physical connection. They call them virtual circuits. It's another way to sell you a range of bandwidth available. They call it a permanent virtual circuit, always connected, or a switched virtual circuit that's temporary, and it addresses these things what's called data link connection identifiers. X25 is an older packet used decades ago, pretty much replaced by frame relay, I think. ATM is still widely used. Every cell is only 53 bytes, 5 bytes of address and 48 bytes of data, and you can carry other protocols all over it. And there's another older one called STMS. Multi-protocol label switching is also used, another way to forward WAN data using labels that can carry many types of traffic, including ATM and frame relay. And these are what ISPs use to move large amounts of variegated traffic from one location to another. SDLC is a layer 2 WAN protocol that used something called polling, like token packaging, so it tells you when you can talk. High-level data link control is the successor, which added error correction and flow control, and it had 3 modes: a normal response mode, an asynchronous response mode, and an asynchronous balanced mode. All right. And so a lot of people run multiple services over the same Ethernet network now: voice, industrial control, storage area networks, and so on. DNP3 is an open standard used by the energy sector. I've got it in my OT class that I haven't taught here yet, but I taught various other places, for interoperability between supervisory control and data acquisition systems, which control industrial equipment, and smart grids. common in the energy sector. It's a multi-layer protocol over TCP, and the original specification was vulnerable to various attacks. There's a later version that is much better. And there are storage protocols, because if you have a lot of data, you have a network of just storage devices, and you access them over the network. You typically use fiber channel over Ethernet is one technique used, or iSCSI, and that's for storage area networks. So they give you a block level file access like a directly attached hard drive, but it's really going over a network. Usually relatively short range inside a data center. So fiber channel uses special cable and hardware with host bus adapters. FCOE uses standard Ethernet, but not TCP/IP, just Ethernet, which is a layer 2 protocol. Fiber channel over IP is another way to do it, over IP, if your data center is far away. And iSCSI uses high layers of the suite for communication. It can be routed and lets you access storage over a wide area network. Virtual SANs are storage area networks, and virtual SAN is like a VLAN where you break your storage area devices into units that work together like a virtual local area network that do not need to be physically co-located, but they can be part of the same logical unit. Voice over IP is big. Of course, almost all telephone calls go this way now, so the audio and video are carried by real-time transport protocol, but the session initiation protocol handles the signaling, like ringing the phone, dialing, things like that, phone answered. And there's a secure real-time transport protocol that uses encryption and hashing to provide security, which is lacking for the main one. Although in practice, a lot of people turn off the encryption to get higher quality, and that means you can eavesdrop on them. So voice over IP saves money. It was sold as saving money here. In practice, it really didn't save money because you had to upgrade your network to carry the traffic to get acceptable quality, but it still became extremely popular because you can automate some things like press 1 for this, press 2 for that, and so on. All right. Software-defined networks are all the rage now because almost everything is virtual now. Your servers are virtual machines, your networks are VLANs, and so you have software-defined networks where this is routing your traffic between the virtual devices in software. So the traffic is also virtual. Your routers and switches and firewalls are also virtual. OpenFlow is the most well-known software-defined networking protocol using TCP and TLS encryption. All right. Well, that's the last one. Let's try the 4F. Yeah, okay, good. Joe, if you get yourself in the middle, and then you pick up the traffic. And if you're using RTP without encryption, you can just play it in Wireshark. That's all. That's why, using any kind of unencrypted protocol is unwise. But sometimes people do it for performance. All right. So which link goes up to 45 megs? And that's right, Joe. RTP by itself has no encryption. There's a secure version, but you can run it without encryption, and sometimes people do. T3s go up to 45 megs. Which one is a storage protocol? Yeah, fiber channel over Ethernet. All right. Which protocol is used by the energy sector? Yeah, DNP3. All right. And what's the most well-known software-defined networking protocol? All right, that's OpenFlow. All right, let me record these winners, and then I'll answer Joe's question. There's Daryl. All right. All right. And so Daryl asked about encryption over voice over IP. Let me bring back the slides. It'll be easiest there. So voice over IP, RTP has no encryption. You can do that. And see, what happened is it was a marketing problem. Cisco and other companies put big ads in all the magazines and said, you can switch your phone to go over IP without upgrading your network. Just run it over your existing network. So people did that, and then what happened is the quality for the call was too low because the network didn't have enough bandwidth. So they had to upgrade their quality. And so the problem was, so they found that the phone quality was too low, and so they often turned off the encryption, moving from SRTP back to RTP to get higher quality voice, because of course the encryption does consume processing power at both ends and increase the bandwidth. So you can get a higher quality call without encryption. The encryption had overhead that was unacceptable for many companies. So they were actually running their voice transmissions unencrypted over the Ethernet network, where you can capture that with Wireshark or TCP dump or anything else if you can get in the middle. And so, of course, before this, you would just send analog signals unencrypted over wires, so people were pretty used to telephone calls not being encrypted. So it was not considered a huge security problem, although maybe it should have been. But anyway, that's what happened. There is unencrypted voice over IP in use, and you can sniff it. Of course, this is one of the rules of encryption. Is first thing you do to break encryption is check for plain text. A lot of stuff that should be encrypted is not. A lot of police radios are not encrypted. A whole lot of data is not encrypted for various reasons. Anyway, it's a good question, and that's the answer to that. Let me stop.